somebody wants to say anything, and can I just, okay. I just want to abuse my privilege as chair and then shut up, because I did want to say one thing about Jack. Please convey from our committee our warmest regards, and if you can, if he's in the hospital, if you can leave us the details so we can send him a card or something. And the other thing is, just personally, I didn't find out about the naming of the park after him until after I saw the sign. I felt so bad. If you talk to him, could you convey to him that, you know, we're really sorry.
We didn't even go up.
They didn't put the posters up until like the very day. And would have definitely wanted to.
Even last check was like, he didn't know, he happened to get in and was rushing, and I could have caught the ride.
Anyway, so let's ask, make a statement, ask a question. You talking about? Go ahead, Adi.
Welcome, and I was here in the Public Safety Committee when the previous chief had a little bit of a heavy hand on the community and did not relate to the community.
That's McManus?
No.
Previous to Jack.
Previous,
Officer Garrett.
Yeah,
I mean,
Chief Garrett. And so the community actually.
really, he's the preview.
Yes. The community actually got involved into figuring out who's going to be the next chief. And so when we met Jack, we knew immediately that Jack is the person, because one of the first thing I remember about him is a woman crossing the street, an older lady, and he ran and carried her bags. And to me, that was, okay, that's the person. And the training, we also had a lot of conversations with Jack about training the officers, not as police, but more of how to de-escalate rather than escalate, because during RIRA, most of the confrontations or the issues always escalated. And so I'm happy to see that there's a continuity in this. And so I just wanted to mention this because training is important. And the officers, you have new officers that haven't been here for a long time, and a couple of us have noticed that they were not interacting with the people. They're more like this, and we mentioned it to Jack, and next day they're all smiling, and it changed. And under your leadership, also, it's carrying through. So, welcome to Roosevelt Island.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I also
Go ahead,
would like to
Rosa.
say, actually, I mentioned this morning with you already, that I have also observed that the new group of new officers that you have is a great group. They are great guys. They are engaging actually with the community. I see them engaging, you know, in asking or listening if necessary. So that is very, very important to our community. So thank you for carrying on.
Did you want to go ahead and say what you were saying before?
Sure. Looking back over the years, I think the one commodity that has been most lacking, not necessarily from public safety, but from RIRA, has been information.
Yeah.
There needs to be a back and forth that's more prevalent. The advisories that I get now on email are terrific. They are on the money, they are current, but there needs to be an understanding of this community that some people aren't going to be looking at them. We've got these ancient kiosks for posting information. They work. People look at them. People in this community are attuned to using those. Use them.
I'd like to, oh, do you want, Lynn? I was thinking, this is very different than NYCHA. Roosevelt Island, like, I lived on the Lower East Side in 1992. I moved there back in 79, 80. So I lived on Rivington and Clinton.
You're too young.
So I had a spot on either side of me, and the bodega on the corner had their own thing going on.
You
so
were
it's
probably
very-
on his list.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
maybe.
joking.
I was the crazy.
I don't remember.
I didn't live in the project.
Here we go.
But I was the crazy white social worker, in a neighborhood where no one else should be, probably. But it's a lot different, but that, I guess, will have some advantage with the way Roosevelt Landing is, you know, formed and situated. I think it is just important to listen, to be open. Kevin knows it was the lack of transparency. It was the fact that things were happening, and I mean, for us to have a meeting like this, I would have to send questions. He would decide what questions he was going to do. Matt and I, one time, he was refusing because he didn't like them. He wasn't going to answer them. But you know, things that had been, it was just, it was really horrific. There was absolutely no communication, and it got to a point where he had support from somewhere until the community actually rose up. I mean, 400 people in town hall meetings, all of the politicians ended up coming on to our side, and you know, he had to leave. But it took a boy with a punctured lung from being kicked, who was not even guilty, didn't even get arrested, was never chained to a bed. You know, this is how mothers with baby carriages were being, like, you know, arrested for jumping the turnstile. I mean, crazy, crazy stuff. It has been such a pleasure to have Jack and Kevin, and the changes that you will hear from most parents, that I feel safe when my child comes home now. I didn't feel safe because my son's friends were all of the ones that they were arresting, you know, and they weren't doing it, trespassing in front of their own doors, silly stuff, you know. And I think you'll hear that a lot, that it really feels good to know that you are part of the community in protecting us, rather than trying to, you know, I mean, we don't have that kind of crime here generally.
Yeah.
You know, that it has to be so hard-handed and enforced. So it'll be a lot different than the NYCHA projects on the Lower East Side,
Yes.
and the community will be a lot different, maybe less challenging or more challenging because of the diversity.
Yes.
You know, we do have mental health, we have disabilities that are both, you know, physical, which Lynn has done a lot of work. She did some work to help train in public safety and mental health, which was, I think, very useful. The men came in and they were responsive. I have seen the difference on, Susan did tell me you had provided a lot of the trainings. I always thought that was you, Kevin.
Well, I did, I did some in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And then, you know, some of the history that Jack just slowed down.
Yeah.
And then it
You
just
had to
became
take
too
off.
much for me to do. So then I had to outsource it to him because.
So we get some of the credit,
Yes.
that's all.
Well, he trained the new officers that we have. There's 16 officers, so he was instrumental in training those new officers. But prior to that, I was doing all of the training.
Yeah, that's
And,
what I thought.
and it
And,
just.
and it worked. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really.
But and the ones that
fantastic.
didn't want to be community police officers left.
Yeah.
And they went wherever, you know, and that was, you know, we got rid of a few, and then, you know,
Yeah,
but,
but
and
I
Jack
was-
always said that. I
Yeah.
said a leopard doesn't change its spots, and he said, well, let me try from the top, if we filter down something different, if it's not that we're supporting this type of behavior, if we call people out on it, the officers, it will change, and it did, or they left.
And, you know, when my
Hold
kids
on,
were,
did you want to say something, Lynn?
No, I just was really pleased that we were able to work with you guys to get the NORCAN training for all of your officers. I thought that timing wise, that was really, really important. And also that we did the training that was specifically for officers to help recognize issues within the officers themselves. And then the mental health trainings for seniors and youth and all those other programs that we were able to coordinate some with the different officers. Not every officer was able to see some of the specialized ones, but they all had an experience, or a good many of them, with the mental health for officers, which I thought was really valuable.
The level of CPR training that you brought to the island makes a difference.
Well, and that's something else you guys followed through on and made sure that all the officers
Yeah,
were
every
trained
officer
in,
has CPR.
are all are certified in that,
Yeah.
so that's
Amazing.
another important piece.
And they got an advanced first aid too on, that they're giving to all the NYPD officers. They've all received that too.
I'm calling myself for a second. it's almost 6 years now since the old regime, since we had our regime change on this island, you know. But really, the change, as Aaron said and others, is so fundamental, and it's like a memory. But I mean, but it's important for you to know, which I'm sure you do, that you know what the situation we have today, you know, comes out of that history. And if you ever had the time to like research some of it, because it was an amazing amount of coverage that we had, not only in the local press, you know, and which includes Brother Rick here and everything, you know, at the time and since. And really over the last few years, because we established the collaboration like that we're doing here as an example of when incidences came up that were more than the normal stuff, which is, as Aaron said, there's never been the kind of crime on the island, violent crime and stuff like that, you know, most of our stuff is pretty petty, I think, you know, when we'll get to the statistics and stuff, we'll show that. But you know, we had an incident once around a sexual public, predator, and somebody that exposed themselves, a couple of cases, and there was some tensions that grew up around, and it was reflected in the committee, you know, because there had been some mistakes made in the way the report was filed and the response time. But we got through it together. We even had a public meeting that went very well. Another issue was, there was an issue of, you know, marijuana smoke in public, especially in around the schools. And again, we sat through it. There was some tension, but we worked through it. We went forward, and you know, compared to in the past when it would have been you know, so that's the continuity, and it's been so many years now. I think we started to take it for granted, but you know, just so that you know what our committee does, you know, if there are any serious complaints in the community or something that after we vet any complaint that we take it as a serious, credible complaint of abusive behavior, something like that, then we deal with it. We do it seriously even before we investigate. We don't tolerate any, you know, with our committee, if we make a charge or something, and we haven't. I mean, one reason we know things have been so good. I mean, the complaint rate just dropped, you know, and before there was a lot. I mean, at the height of our struggle, we had posters on all the kiosks where we would take a picture and we would and we would have an affidavit. I mean, we were pros about it. But anyway, so that history is important, but right now we all, you know,
I think that one of the ways that this working with Chief McManus is the way that we looked at this. Chief McManus was the commanding officer of 3 precincts in New York City. And as a commanding officer in a precinct, you're held accountable by your community. And every commanding officer must have community meetings once a month. Mm-hmm. And at that time, the community is, you know, they hold their feet to the fire. And so he was used to that. And myself, as a lieutenant in the NYPD, I was in specialized units a lot of time. So I had to attend these meetings. And a lot of the times these meetings were focused on something that my units needed or had to get done. And it was a commanding officer who would instruct me that we have to listen to these complaints and address them. And that's the way we look at it here, that we have a community, we're the law enforcement, the local law enforcement, mm-hmm. and we're held accountable to you guys, not to work together. And there is no value, or there's nothing that's going to come out of it if we don't work together.
We appreciate that now, but it wasn't always RIRA. We didn't have the same umbrella before. It was sort of rogue.
But I think that's, you know, that should have been a police philosophy. I don't. Mm-hmm. So that's just my understanding.
No, we agree.
And you know, I don't know how a police or local law enforcement survives by not working with the community. Because why else are you here? Mm-hmm. You're here to serve the community and make sure that everyone is safe, make sure that crime is low, and to make sure that the services are taken care of. And if we don't work together, and I don't listen to what your, you know, and address what your complaints are, how do we move forward? So that's why we're here. We're here, you know, and we're also here to tell you, you know, give you the proper information also. If you bring up something, we're here to answer all questions. Not duck them, not hide behind some, you know, we're here to answer you, honestly, truthfully. That's one thing that McManus told me, be truthful. That you must be truthful. And if it hurts, the truth hurts sometimes, but you have to, you know, and sometimes, and this does happen, and I've sat here with McManus, and one of the jobs that McManus did 99.9% of the speaking at the meetings, but if you had a complaint, and it was a legitimate complaint about anything in our department or office, he would tell you, I will go and I will take care of it. And I'm going to continue that.
Good, and he did. I mean, that was, you saw Scott Freero had brought all of those things,
Yes.
and all of things,
And he
changes
brought
were
it,
made.
yes, he brought it right to read.
yeah.
And you know, one thing that we have is that we can go to Susan and Shelton.
Right.
And when we leave these meetings, before I came to the meeting, Susan said, you know, we talked about coming to the meeting, and tomorrow morning, as soon as I get in, Susan's going to ask me, how was the meeting?
Good.
So she's engaged and she's on top of this.
It was like Charlene and Jack, when, you
Right.
know, they were, we would come, she would call me and Jack, and we would have our
Take,
sit-downs to agree.
Not everybody, anybody else want to say anything? Rick, I was
Just
going
one
to
more
ask.
thing, where the attendance is, so Sherry can sign, do you have it?
I do.
There's an attendance sheet floating around.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I would just like to encourage you guys to continue being as transparent as you can. When there's an incident on the island, you know, there may be an assault or an accident, be proactive and let the community know what happened. Because what often happens is I'll see something on the daily incident report, and it may indicate something happened, but it's not specific. So as you know, I'll send an email and asking what happened.
But
So,
we do have a process with that, is that, you know, you send the email and I have to send it to Susan and
Right.
our public information officer, and that's how it gets to you.
right,
So I don't want you to think that I'm not responding to you,
Right, no.
but there is a process.
right. So,
All
but
right.
I'm just encouraging.
And I get back, I send out the information.
Right.
You know,
Because
so,
in the past, it would just go to Jack and he would get back to me right away.
Yeah.
So now there seems to be another layer in this.
yeah, there was a process.
So has the process changed?
Well, the process is that Susan wants us to go through the public information officer,
And that's,
Terrence.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
it's working okay. It's just,
And
He's a really nice guy.
yeah, no,
And you know, one of the things that what he does is he really, in a lot of times the questions come off hours for him, and when he takes the time to get all of the information so that he can give you everything, and if you have additional questions, that he can answer you.
Matthew? So anybody,